So far, the campaign against Venezuela has consisted in a major bounty against Nicolas Maduro, $50 million reward for his death or capture. CIA has been authorized to operate inside Venezuela against the Maduro regime. The administration has backed the claim of Maduro's rival, Machado. Her party, according to the UN and watchdog groups, won the election, the presidential election last year, as well as what has been well documented, which are these military strikes against drug smuggling boats off the coast of Venezuela, which are not even really heading towards the United States. Really, they're headed towards probably Trinidad and Tobago, get to Texas or Florida. These are small boats. They're local. And now, like I said, the latest escalation is Trump said he's actually going to bomb Venezuela. And this is a story from the New York Times. We'll go through it and we'll talk about the whole situation. It says, quote, President Trump on Wednesday suggested that U.S. strikes on alleged drug shipments on land could be coming soon amid the U.S. bombing campaign targeting boats in Latin America. Trump has made similar comments before, and according to multiple media reports, the U.S. is preparing to bomb Venezuela with the goal of ousting Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, and is using the crackdown on drug trafficking as the pretext. The president claimed to reporters at the White House that he had legal authority to launch the strikes, but Congress has not authorized the bombing campaign, which the Constitution requires for launching a war. Trump said that he may notify Congress of the plans to launch strikes on land targets, but didn't say he would seek authorization. He said, we will hit them very hard when they come in by land, and they haven't experienced that yet, but now we're totally prepared to do that. We'll probably go back to Congress and explain exactly what we're doing when they come to the land. Since September 2nd, the U.S. has bombed at least 7 boats in the Caribbean and 1 in the Eastern Pacific near Colombia, extrajudicially killing 34 people at sea. Sources told the Washington Post on Wednesday that any airstrikes in Venezuela would likely first target alleged trafficker encampments or clandestine airstrips, but regime change remains the ultimate goal. The U.S. has built up a significant force in the Caribbean and has flown heavy bombers and special operations forces helicopters near Venezuela, which officials say is part of a psychological campaign against Maduro. Leaks against the U.S. preparing to launch airstrikes and Trump signing off on covert operations inside the country are also part of a psychological operation aimed at Maduro and the Venezuelan people. So just very quickly, in the first place, let's be very clear about what is happening here and the timeline. Make no mistake about it, this is a push for regime change. And maybe that's obvious. I think that's pretty clear at this point. But that is not what the administration is publicly saying. What they have been saying over the course of the past 7 or 8 months is that they are fighting a military campaign against drug traffickers and drug cartels. The administration has rebranded the drug cartels as terrorists. He says they are narco-terrorists. And he is using the drug epidemic inside the United States, particularly with cocaine and fentanyl and other drugs from Central and South America. He is saying that those deaths amount to terrorism. So if a U.S. adult citizen buys fentanyl or buys heroin or buys cocaine or crack and they die from an overdose, Trump says that is a terrorism death. That is a terrorism-related fatality, which, of course, it is really not. He says that as such, every one of those deaths that's as a result of drug smuggling and drug trafficking represents terrorism, and the people that are responsible for creating the drugs, trafficking the drugs, distributing the drugs, they are, in effect, terrorists, and they're part of the global war on terror. And that means that we're at war with them. So they've rebranded it. And in the service of this, the administration has brought U.S. naval vessels and Air Force assets and military personnel into the Caribbean, on the islands off the coast of Venezuela, in the waters off the coast of Venezuela. And they're targeting Venezuela, saying that Venezuela and its regime are propped up by what they call narco-terrorists. and in particular 2 drug cartels like Tren de Aragua and another one which people say isn't even real. They say finance the regime. It's important to understand, however, that all of this is a pretext. None of this is real. This is one of the most brazen lies to get us into a war that I've ever seen.
Yes, it is. So only the argument of Trump's administration right now, it only works if you forget the last 50 years of history, because this is a pattern. This has happened before, ladies and gents. We all know this. This has happened before, and it didn't work out for us in Iraq. You know, it didn't work out for us in Afghanistan, and at first it might seem like a good idea. They have the oil. We gotta take the oil, of course, because we are running out of oil. We barely have any oil as it is in America compared to 40 years ago, and they have the most of oil in the world. So we gotta take that oil, of course. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it actually doesn't, you know, because that is not an America first policy. You know, you think we're going to get cheaper oil prices in gas stations for this? No. And if we get a lower fee, it's not gonna even make a difference, because these resources are mostly going to other countries. Just wait, because this Corina Machado, this girl who is going to most definitely become next Venezuela president, is very good friends with Bibi Netanyahu. She has promised to him all the oil in the world to Israel and Bibi Netanyahu. So I don't think personally that we are going to war after this Maduro capturation thing. I don't think we are going to war with Venezuela, because I think everybody is in everybody's pockets as it is. You know, they are going to hand over the throne, and that's fine. So we are not going to waste a lot of money in combat and those kinds of stuff. But this is not America first, and these resources are not going into our pocket. Believe me. By the way, please subscribe. This is our second channel. Most of you guys that are seeing this, I figure you know me, you know the silhouette. I'm the American guy, legal migrant streaming from the great state of Wyoming. Been here for the past 12 years. We got banned at 73,000 subscribers, crazy, but we were not stopping. So Trump's argument right now only survives if you have amnesia. That's my main point. So let's hear to what Dick has to say about this.
Because most of the drugs that are manufactured don't come from Venezuela. And most of the drugs that are trafficked into the United States don't come from Venezuela either. We have legitimate targets among the drug cartels. They are in Colombia. They are in Mexico. They're in Central America. They're also in South America, but they're not really in Venezuela. That's not where the bulk of drug trafficking occurs, and almost none of the drug manufacturing occurs there. So the reality is this is a very thinly veiled pretext for a war with Venezuela, the real object of which is regime change. Why? It's simple. Because for the past 22 years, Venezuela has been controlled by a socialist regime, which is ideologically opposed to the United States. And more than that, Venezuela has aligned itself strategically with U.S. adversaries like China, Russia, and Iran. And it is U.S. strategic doctrine that the entire Western Hemisphere is our domain. So although there are regimes contrary to the United States, like Nicaragua, like Cuba, like Venezuela, increasingly the United States has little tolerance for this. And especially in the past 5 years, the United States, the U.S. Southern Command, the CIA, and the State Department has sought to overturn the influence of American strategic opponents in Central and South America. This is the bigger picture. This is the bigger story. Washington recognizes that across the board, we are losing Central and South America to China. China has increasingly become the major or the second biggest trading partner of almost all Central and South American countries. And that's bringing with it Chinese political and military presence. China is investing in dual-use infrastructure in South America. For example, deep water ports, which have a commercial use for shipping, but they also might in the future have a military use because China could station military naval vessels there or build Chinese naval bases there. So the increased trade relations, the increased political and strategic engagement with China has the United States very concerned. So there has been an across-the-board effort, for example, in our effort to oust China from Panama and the Panama Canal. The United States push, I think, to get Javier Milei elected in Argentina. The maximum pressure campaign on Venezuela and Cuba. The cooling of relations with Brazil. This is part of a concerted effort by Washington and Central and South America to undo this trend where they have lost their grip on the Western Hemisphere and losing influence to China. And Venezuela is a major part of this. It is Venezuela's purchase of Russian weapons. It's their collaboration with Iran. But what is important about Venezuela is its resources. Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves, heavy sour crude oil, which our oil industry processes in the Gulf Coast. It has gold. It has natural gas. This is why the United States is interested in Venezuela. It has nothing to do with drugs. Venezuela is not a target because of drug manufacturing, drug trafficking into the United States, drug deaths in the United States. It has almost nothing to do with Venezuela. The reason that Venezuela is number one on the list is because this is meant to send a message to all of our strategic competitors like Russia and China, as well as to their clients in Central and South America, like, let's say, Nicaragua or like Peru or other countries, that this is what happens when you don't obey the United States. It's about the strategic alignment of Venezuela, and it's also about their oil and their gold.
Okay, so that's an important point, because this, like I said earlier, has happened before, maybe not this like quick, like overnight, but this regime changes presented in form of coups had happened before, and it has been all about the natural resources, guys. It happened in Chile, 1973, the nationalization of copper. It happened in Argentina in the 70s as well, in Brazil. It all happened it was all about the biggest thing in the planet, if you ask me, the natural resources. And now it is about the same thing. And it's important to, whether you like this or not, to not let us be fooled about it, like it is about the drugs. Because Venezuela is not the larger importer of fentanyl into our country, We're not kids, we're not idiots, we're not buying that, Mr. Trump. Okay? I used to like you, but I don't like being lied to. I'm a big man. Men don't like to be lied to, alright? And you're lying to us by saying that. By saying it's about the drugs. It's not about the drugs. It's about the oil. And the oil, it's not going to be for us. Just wait and you'll remember me. It's going to be for our boy BB, okay?
So, in the first place, let's be very clear. This is a pretext for regime change. The drug trafficking thing, the narco-terrorism thing, like with any pretext for war, there is some truth to it. It's not to say that Venezuela doesn't manufacture any drugs or doesn't traffic any drugs, but it's marginal compared to the other major drug producers and drug trafficking states. The real reason they're number one on the list has to do with the grand strategy of the United States, which is to secure the Western Hemisphere as a sphere of influence for the United States. That's the purpose. Let's be clear about that. And so the buildup to the war has been very interesting. Trump is deploying these naval vessels, conducting these strikes against small boats. And let's talk about specifically what the administration has done. Their first action was to put a $50 million bounty on the head of Maduro. Why? It's an extremely corrupt regime. It's a dysfunctional and poor country that is not economically efficient, that is struggling. The goal of putting the $50 million bounty is to try to get some of the top lieutenants in the regime to betray Maduro. It's to create a coup. That's effectively what that is. They're paying Maduro's inner circle to start a coup against him so they could take the ransom payment. Then Trump brings in the naval vessels and starts bombing. He's flying B-1 bombers, B-52 bombers over Venezuela. I'm sure the naval vessels are literally visible from the coast. They're putting radar in Grenada. They want Venezuela to feel the presence of the U.S. military. And the message is indelible. They want the top brass in the Venezuelan military to understand you're all going to die. Here's what's going to happen. The administration is going to kill you. The CIA is going to overthrow you. U.S. warships will bomb you and you will literally die. So that's behind door number one. Door number two is you take the $50 million payment, you overthrow Maduro, and then maybe you're running the country. Maybe you're running the government. That's clearly the goal here. So the objective is regime change. The tactics are a resumption of the tactics from the first administration, Trump 45, which is maximum pressure. The Trump administration does not want to invade Venezuela. It doesn't want a protracted conflict. They want to increase the pressure psychologically, economically, militarily with this gunboat display, with sanctions, with the ransom or the bounty. And they want the people inside the regime to do the work for him. Venezuela was brought to the brink of collapse by maximum pressure the first time, but the Maduro regime is airtight. And the Maduro regime is so solid because it relies on Cuban intelligence. Inside every military division, inside every one of the security services, Maduro has embedded Cuban intelligence officers that basically report to him personally. And so the defectors, the traitors, the disloyal, they had been purged a long time ago. And there's a culture of fear and anxiety inside the Maduro regime. They're terrified of disloyalty. They're more terrified of Maduro than they are actually of the United States. And so this is the game that is being played. And we'll see what happens. I think, and I talked about this with Alex Jones last week, I think it is basically inevitable that the CIA and the State Department will get their regime change. The question is, how much will the United States have to do here? We put the ransom up. We're bombing the ships. We have our naval vessels there. We're flying our bombers over their airspace. We have the CIA operating in the country. We may actually engage Venezuela in ground strikes, naval strikes or air strikes targeting drug traffickers or infrastructure on the ground. And as time goes on, the pressure will increase, and the hope is that people inside the regime will break.
Okay, guys, as you know, Maduro declared himself innocent today in court in New York City. This will be all for today. Remember to subscribe, guys. We are building this once again from the bottom. Once again, streaming from the great state of Wyoming. You see the mountains in the back. I'm happy to be back here, guys. Please subscribe, and we'll keep it up. This is once again the first of many videos covering what's true and what's right in America. So remember, speech over silence, truth over comfort. Let's go.